Hello, Jo here with another tutorial from Time for Tea Designs. This tutorial was recorded during last night's Facebook Live event, which happens every Thursday night. That's 8 o'clock UK time if you'd like to join us for future tutorials. This is the edited version, like I say, and we use some fabulous Time for Tea products, including some of the brand new release. So to kick off with, I decided that I wanted to use some of the amazing stamp sets that we had released during last year. I've not used them for a while, and I felt like that they would make a really nice, fresh and bright card for us today. I'm also going to use the one of the masking stencils from the new release. So this is the small rectangle masking stencil, and I'm also using some of our super smooth pre-cut cardstock for my my focal panel. I've decided to use the Call Me On My Shell Phone stamp set as part of this because I seem to have mislaid the one that I originally planned on using, and you can see there I had a little bit of reorganizing of my craft mat there just so that you can see everything that I'm doing and everything was straight. I have recently reorganized my craft room and I will be coming to you with a bit of a craft room tour video in the future, as a few people mentioned that they'd quite like to see that. So I'm just experimenting with sizes here, and I decided in the end that the smaller rectangle would work better for the purposes of what we're trying to do today. So I had a vision in mind that I would layer up my stencils and use the cloud stencil. Mine is well worn, as you can see, it's been very well used. And in order to make that fit onto my masking stencil, I'm just taping that down using the etched score lines that are on the masking stencil itself, so that you can line that up. They're sized for A2 US size cards and A6 UK size card blanks. So you'll see there that I have done, you know, the unthinkable. I've snipped my stencil just so that I can fit that around my card base, and so that I can use those clouds upside down to form waves. So just using it a little bit differently today. And I'm using my Distress Oxide inks to blend through both of these stencils. So I'm going to start with the Twisted Citron, and I'm going to use the new beautiful blender brushes. The medium sized brushes are perfect for this kind of project because the cloud or the wave portions are quite delicate. So while this is made from really thick, good quality mylar, it is actually quite delicate. So if you were to use a traditional tool, you may find that that lifts a little bit, but with the size of these brushes and the way that you're able to control them, that is much easier and means that you don't get that lift and you don't get those blurred lines through your stencil pattern. So I'm just working through the ink, pushing that through very gently and holding down my my stencil as well as I move along, just to make sure that everything stays in place, and gradually building up that colour. So so yes, so you can see that I'm using, although this is speeded up quite significantly, I'm using a sort of a circular motion, and I'm holding on to that, gripping the head of my brush just so that I can really control that and move that in the right place. And I've taken that Salty Ocean Distress ink and overlapped my Twisted Citron to create a sea green colour effect. That was the effect that I was going for. And I'm now using the Mermaid Lagoon. It seemed only right to use the mermaid ink when we're going to be crafting with our mermaids. So I'm doing the same thing, just using that circular motion and controlling the head of my brush, and then bringing that colour down to overlap the Salty Ocean. The Distress Oxide inks are great because as you apply more colour, the smoother the blend becomes. So I'm applying some more of that Twisted Citron across the bottom there, and then overlapping that with the Salty Ocean above. And that's created a really nice sea green colour and a really nice blend. So I'm cleaning off my brushes there just with a microfiber cloth and cleaning my inky fingers because I didn't want to get ink all over the rest of my card. And I'm just removing that cloud stencil and popping that to one side after I've given it a quick wipe with my baby wipes, just to keep that clean. And now we're going to just add some splatters of paint. So I've got a little bit of, this is actually porcelain paint, but I would suggest that maybe acrylic paint would work better for this. So I'm just applying a few little droplets of water to it just so that it's a little bit more pliable, and then I'm going to flick those splatters off the edge of my my palette, so that I can control them a little bit better and I get a finer spray, rather than if I was just to tap my brush perhaps on my fingers or on my hands. So I'm happy with the amount of spray that we've got on there. That'll just create a bit of a nice textured feature. And I'm just wiping around some of that acrylic paint, sorry, that porcelain paint, so that it doesn't stick too much to my stencil. I'll pop that to one side to dry, and then we're moving on to stamping our image. So like I say, I decided to pick the Call Me On My Shell phone because I wanted to create a card for a friend, and this has got a really great sentiment to a fantastic, you are a fantastic friend, sorry. So I've just picked a few of the images from that stamp set that I can stamp out, and I'm using my stamping platform to help me line those up and make sure that I get a really good impression. My craft desk is a little bit higher than it was before, so I'm standing up now just so that I can really get a good impression, but I did still manage to miss a little bit in the middle. So the stamping platform really did save my bacon there. So once that's all been stamped up, I move on to colouring up my image. So because we're doing this live, sometimes things don't go quite according to plan. I was happy with how her skin colour came out. I wanted to go for a slightly darker skin tone, so because that's not something that I always do. It's not my usual skin tone to do. I normally do much paler, probably similar to my own skin colour. And I don't often do darker skin tones, so I really wanted to practice doing more skin tones, more different techniques. So the colour combination that I used here I felt worked really well, and gave her a really nice colour. So I just used the E11, the E13 and the E15 to colour her face, and then the thought was, what colour do we do her hair? Do we make her like Ariel with red hair? And in my head I pictured it being a bit more orange than it actually is. So I started off colouring it orange, and I did do a full layer of the orange colour, which you will see in the next shot. But I decided to leave that, and very kindly found a picture of Ariel on his phone to show me, and her hair is much redder than it appears. Excuse me, you probably can hear the cat complaining in the background there. He's not a happy chap because he's getting ignored while I do this voiceover. So yes, so I do decide to colour her hair in red, but while I'm just letting her hair dry, I do move on to the phone, which I've coloured in shades of pink. The reason that I let the orange just dry a little bit before I applied a layer of red was I didn't want to oversaturate the paper. So by allowing it a little bit of time to just dry, it meant then I could easily go over with my layers of red and change that colour completely. So I was really happy with how it turned out in the end. The red went over it really nicely. If you were to use the same shades of red without the undertone of orange, I don't know whether it would come out the same, but they are very opaque, these the Copic markers, so they do allow you to correct those mistakes with a darker shade if you need to. So I have let the hair again just dry a little bit between each layer that I've done, so I will build up some more depth, but while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm just using some shades of blue to add to the mermaid tail there, and because the colours were quite far apart and I didn't have any in between colours, then I am using that tip to tip action there just to bring those colours close together so that they blend really nicely. And then I've coloured her little shell bra in the green and done the same with the centre of the phone there. And then using those same green shades, I'm moving on to colouring up the reeds and the little fishy friend that she's got there. And then the contrasting colour, I decided to use a bit of orange and then yellow for the tops of the reeds. So just doing some really simple colouring there because these are really small areas to colour. And then my jellyfish, to tie some of these colours together, I decided I would do him in red. But I also then at this point decided to just add another layer of red to deepen those red shades up a little bit. So I've moved on to a really dark shade of red here, and just adding some of those darker areas to where the curves in her hair would be, where the shadow would be in the background, so that you can see those layers really nicely. And then some lighter shades of red for our jellyfish, so the R05 and the R29, and just applying that darker colour at the edges so that he looks like he's curved. So now all my images are coloured up and we got over the hair mishap. I then moved on to die cutting all of those using the coordinating dies that you can get with the set. Now these are on a special offer at the moment in the shop, so if you don't have them already, then please do check that out, because we don't have a great deal of stock left for a lot of the items actually that were in our winter sale. So yeah, please do check that out and grab them while you can. So now all my die cut pieces are ready. I've just poked them out of the dies and they cut out a really nice shape. You get the separation in between the phone and her ear, which I think is really nice. And now I'm just working out where I would like them to sit on my focal panel. The sentiment, like I say, that I wanted was "You are a fantastic friend," and that fits really nicely at the top there, just in that little the little curve of the wave. So I'm using again my stamping platform to line up my card base. I did use my heat gun just to dry some of that paint, because we will, like I say, it was a live tutorial, so it hadn't quite dried in the time that it had taken us to get to this point. So I did use my heat gun just to dry that off a little bit, and that warped my card ever so slightly. So I was a little bit worried when it came to stamping, but it stamped perfectly fine. I didn't attempt stamping it again, which I perhaps would have done had I not had the warping of the card, because even with the stamping platform I felt that might be a bit of a risk. I'm just trimming down that card base then by a few millimeters around each side. That way it will be slightly smaller than my card base, and I'm going to be using one of our top folding A6 card bases, but using it landscape. So in order to fix that to my card panel, I'm going to use some foam tape, and I'm using a thick piece of tape roll, and I'm going to cover the entire back of this panel. And the reason for doing that is that that will really help flatten it out, and it'll mean that there is no sagging at all in the centre of your card. Applying lots of foam dots to the back of our little mermaid. I was really frustrated because in all of our reorganising and unpacking, I seem to have misplaced my pokey tool, which is you know, my go-to tool for removing the backs of my my foam tape. So I didn't do too badly, but yeah, it did stress me out a little bit that I couldn't find it. So not to worry, we managed all right. So I just used some of those little squares to add our images to the front of our panel. And we're almost there. It was really starting to come together and look really lovely. So I used my glaze pen, my black glaze jelly roll pen, to just add a little bit of shimmer to the eyes. I really think that that makes a big difference, really makes them shine and brings them to life. And then I'm using the white jelly roll pen to just add a few highlights here and there. I was going to apply some to the mermaid tail, but then I decided to add a little bit of shimmer instead, so I thought that was a little bit more interesting. And one thing I like to do for mermaid hair is just add a few little dots, white dots to each of those strands of hair, or those lengths of hair, because again, she's a mermaid, she's a mythical creature, so it just adds a little bit of something extra. So I'm just testing out my stickles. These are the Stardust stickles, and then applying that liberally to her tail, and that just really did finish her off, gave her a real nice bit of glitz. So although it's still quite a really nice simple card, it did just add that little bit of a finishing touch. And then, because I love a little bit of shimmer, I used my Wink of Stella pen to add some shimmer to the reeds and to the jellyfish and to the face of the phone. So there she is. She's all complete. I was really pleased with how she turned out, and I think Ant was pretty impressed with that shimmer, so I was just trying to get that on camera, but I think you can see that better in some of the photos that we've got here. I really hope that you enjoyed the tutorial today. It was a lot of fun to create. Please do join us for future tutorials, both on YouTube, where we'll have the edited version, but also our Facebook Live every Thursday. It'd be great if you could join us. In the meantime, have a really fantastic day, and thanks again for watching. Bye bye now.